call the meeting to order. Rebecca, please call the roll.
Here.
Hallie?
Yes.
Gandy?
Here.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, not. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the February 22nd, 2021 council meeting. Approval of March 5th, 2021 payroll in the amount of $126,334.02. Approval of USDA Step 1 debt in the amount of $25,950. Approval of USDA wastewater treatment debt in the amount of $154,590. Approval of the January finance report. Approval of the February finance report. Resolution authorizing funds transfers. Acceptance of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee minutes. Approval of liquor license for Quality Quick Stop. Approval of total claims in the amount of $458,611.56. We had one claim above $75,000 for PKG contracting in the amount of $142,925.41.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Gandy, second by Rasmussen. Any other questions or discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to public forum and appearances, and you can let people in if they can kind of distance themselves as much as they can from each other. And do we have Dr. Cochran here? And oh, there you are, Terry. Thank you. Oh, and Calvin. I don't recognize anybody. Try that long way out there. So probably a couple could stand on the ramp over here. Okay, Terry and Calvin, go ahead.
All right. Thanks for having me here. So, Park and Rec Advisory Board met on first Monday of the month there. Obviously, we discussed mass policy. Kind of why we're here tonight, too.
Oh, Calvin, hang on just a minute. Sorry. Let's get those people settled first. So I'm going to ask for no talking during this period except for Calvin and Terry. Thank you. Go ahead, Calvin.
All right. So, one of the topics that we discussed was mass policy at the rec center. One of the things that we decided on as a board was that we were going to continue with the mask policy there. One of the reasons being is that about a quarter of our memberships, and this is just membership, doesn't include dailies, is individuals that are kind of at that 60 and over age group. And, you know, obviously the mask is not a permanent thing. We don't want it to be a permanent thing either. But it was kind of one of these things where it was like, if we have a little bit more time in order to, you know, for vaccines to roll out and for more people to have the opportunity to get vaccines, then, you know, that was kind of the route that we were looking at and thinking about taking. But obviously we're here tonight because there are some differences in opinions and stuff like that. So, but that's just kind of where the board was coming at with the current policy that we have at the rec center right now. So
Great. Thank you.
I will go ahead and kick it over to Mr. Cochran.
Okay, for those of you who don't know, I've been working with Park and Rec for over 30 years now. I've been there for 3 major constructions out at the rec area, for the indoor pool, the outdoor pool, and for the rec center itself. In order to get those facilities, it required significant private donations, many of which came from our senior citizens. This city and the board made a promise to the senior citizens that we would make this facility available for everyone of all age groups in a safe manner. And to date, we have kept that promise. Right now, we only have 20% to 30% of our population above 65 immunized in this county. That is not enough to protect. We also have had people who have contracted COVID while working out at Park and Rec, in particular the weight room. There is no one that can tell me how many exchanges or how long it takes to clear out that room. And it's not the physical hands-on that's the concern. It's the actual airborne. For instance, in the hospital setting, exam room that's supposed to be well ventilated. Some take 45 minutes to clear for the room to be safe. Others take almost 4 hours. And these were rooms that were designed to be safe, as opposed to a room that has radiant heating, does not have adequate ventilation, and would not be safe for any senior to be in there without a mask and without others being in there because of how concentrated it would be and the demonstrated that it can and does cause COVID in this community. Now, the CDC just came out with some recommendations today which actually fit with what our plan was. And that's to make certain we have adequate immunization in our community in the 65 and older group. I anticipate that happening in the next 1 to 2 months. The plan of the board all along was once it was safe so that they could be in there, have the immunizations and not necessarily have to wear masks, then it would be reasonable to change the mask policy. Our goal has been, and our policy right now allows everyone an opportunity to be there. If we get rid of the mask policy before the immunizations reach a critical threshold, we truly are not making it safe for a quarter of the population that uses it. That's totally unacceptable as a physician. Just totally unacceptable. Then the question comes up about masks and wearing them and not liking to do that. Well, before COVID, one of the most popular fitness items was what's called an altitude mask. Basically the equivalent of this, but for working out. And it made a person work harder and improve their peak performance. So, and in terms of oxygen levels, been tested over and over and over again. Oxygen levels exactly the same. So from a pure safety standpoint, keeping our promise for everyone to have access to our facility and having this being based on science, that's why we have the policy we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Council, do you have questions for Dr. Cochran or Todd?
Dr. Cochran, just curious, what you said we're at 20% inoculation right now, roughly. What percentage are you looking at reaching before you revisit this?
Ideally above 50%,
Okay.
which we think can happen by the end of this month. Certainly within 2 months, we should be well above that.
Okay.
So this isn't a public hearing right now. So any other questions, council?
So my question is, this is, the Park and Rec Board is an advisory committee. Are they here making a recommendation for us to vote on?
Well, I think that's up to the council. I mean, in general, I think we take into consideration, I mean, we allow them to make the decisions normally. Every decision that they make does not come up here. So in my view, I think it's, if you want to, that's something up to the council, if they want to do something different. Obviously, this is their recommendation.
Right, so recommendations that come to the council have to be voted on before they can be accepted.
That's not what they're doing. They're just telling us what they decided. And we've already granted them in our code the authority to advise the director. We've given the director the authority to make policy for his department. So if we step in now, we're setting a precedent that we're going to start micromanaging our departments and the boards that that we put in place that are answerable to the public and ultimately answerable to us. But I think it's a dangerous precedent to set.
I think just the opposite. This is a city council that has authority over every employee in the city. The director of Park and Rec might be given latitude to make decisions, policy decisions, set rules and regulations, but they're always subject to review by city council. No employee has superior authority over the council. It's always subject to review.
Rebecca, do we have, you don't have the, I was gonna say, can we get that ordinance up? Do you have that up, Michael?
Which ordinance?
Where we put Park and Rec in there?
Well, I
Chapter
remember
2.
we amended it around 2015 because we didn't feel it was appropriate for an appointed board to handle salary, employee pay. So that's where we added the term advisory, so they could deal more with policy rather than the nuts and bolts of some of the more serious city issues. So all they do is advise the director on exactly this kind of thing, just policy for the department.
John Morrissey, wherever you are, do you know, I think, I'm trying to bring it up here.
I have it here. It's ordinance number 1160.
I was gonna say, John, do you have an opinion on this particular thing?
Well, I know when we started on the COVID process last spring, my understanding was that the individual department heads that were in charge of buildings were in charge of their policies, and that would apply to Kelvin. And we didn't have any problem with this then, so apparently this is a problem now that things are starting to lighten up somewhere, but I don't hear our physician telling us that they're lightening up here, and so I don't think anything's changed much since we took our position last spring in 2020.
Thank you.
I would say if we're gonna police the policy at Park and Rec, then we're gonna police the policy at the library and at the Carnegie Museum, the airport, I mean, all of them. And that's not,
Well, that's our responsibility. We police the policy in the entire city.
We've never managed them that way
we've
before,
never
Doug.
done that. We've
No, we
always
may not have
given,
done it at any particular time in the past, although I think we probably have if we look very closely. But it's always within our authority to do so. You can't tell me that it's not in our authority to do.
No. We went back and we reviewed the board after we had our experience with the director at Park and Rec 5 years ago. But that's about once every 15 or 20 years we've looked at something like that. Ordinarily, this wouldn't get past the city administrator's office.
Here are the
Are you saying that
duties.
we don't have authority over the?
No, you have authority over everything, Doug, but the
Yeah, that's
idea
what I
is,
was- that was the point I was making.
Yeah.
We do have authority. If somebody tells us we don't have authority, that was an incorrect statement.
no, Michael used the term micromanage, and that hasn't been a practice we've had.
Here are the duties and powers. This was ordinance 1137. And this was signed, I don't know, 9th day of 2016. The board shall have the following powers and duties. 1, to recommend to the city council budget providing for the operations of the Parks and Recreation Department, including but not limited to the indoor pool, outdoor pool, parks, public grounds, recreational facilities, and trails. 2, to recommend to the city council the establishment of membership fees, daily use of fees, facility fees for parks and rec facilities. To recommend to the city council policies and legislative matters necessary for the operation of all functions under the jurisdiction of the Parks and Recreation Department. To recommend to the city council a long-term capital improvements program for leisure services facilities, including the acquisition and/or disposition of park facilities. To promote parks and recreation activities and to set fees for those activities which will benefit the citizens of Fairfield. to make recommendations with respect to property and personnel devoted to parks and recreation with the city, to authorize refunds in accordance with council-approved policy. And then there's limitations.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
That ordinance was repealed and replaced by ordinance 1160 on February 12th, 2018.
Okay. You should have stopped me.
Well,
Before that.
no, because I think it's important because we see the history of that board,
Okay.
the authorities they had before, and then those were all repealed by this ordinance I'm holding in my hand
I'm not seeing
that was passed in
one.
2018. That's where their status was reduced to an advisory. But even in prior ordinances, it's clear that their role was to make recommendations to council.
Will you please, are those duties different than what I read?
What number is that, Doug?
1160. No, it just repeals the ordinance you just stated, 1137. And then it sets the number of members to the board at 5 rather than 7 to be appointed by the mayor with approval by council. And that's all this ordinance says.
The following content is provided
Okay.
under a Creative Commons license.
So I think what that was, we just changed the number of board members in 18.
Right, I couldn't find another one well, it repealed that ordinance altogether.
Don't think it did.
Well, I'll read the title. Ordinance 1160, an ordinance repealing that part of ordinance 1137, which provides for the number, you're right, so it only repealed that portion. So,
Those duties are
Still the same.
still there.
right, so they still make recommendations to council.
So how do you want to handle it, council? Are-
I'd say if there's a community disagreement with the board, that if they have issue with the board's decision, then it would come to us to ultimately make that decision for the community.
Okay. So we have a lot of people here tonight who, I'm not sure, what the opinions are, but at some point, do you want to hear these opinions? Do you want to open a public hearing tonight?
We
Don't
can't
think
if
we
we
I don't
don't
think you can
publish
do
it.
that, Your Honor.
It hasn't been published.
It hasn't been
Yeah,
published.
right.
We have to get
So do you
that.
want to
Well-
do that for next time?
No, I object. You can do it if you decide to do so. You're the chair of the,
Yes, but also it says if we think it's an emergency. I don't think this is an emergency. So.
I think you can do it at any time if you like.
Yeah, but our policy, because I read it tonight, does say, our rules of engagement, rules of procedure say that it should be an emergency if we change the agenda to bring something for action. So my personal opinion is this is not an emergency, and that we could have a public hearing at our next council meeting.
Certainly, if a citizen wants to appeal a decision of any board or any committee, they come to council. So of course, that's the course of action, is to appeal that decision to council. And then that comes on our agenda and we deal with it that way. But tonight, all we're doing is hearing from our
Park and Rec board.
Park and Rec board, who we hired, and our Park and Rec director, who we appointed, about what they decided on March 1st. It's not an action item.
Or they make a recommendation or not. According to the ordinance that the mayor read, they're making recommendations to council.
I think under the part where they said they make decisions or they recommend to the director for the property, which I think falls under their jurisdiction.
Does that ordinance not read, they make recommendations to council on policies and procedures?
I think it was already pointed out, the concerns in this community, the fact that there are still so many people that have been unable to get a vaccine, to be available, to be safe, presumably. And then I think when we sort of flaunt the fact that, we have no problems and things, I think it's really unfortunate because, I think we've all tried to cooperate in terms of safe distancing and wearing masks and things like that. And then to sort of decide it really isn't going to make any difference. And then if we start going backwards, everyone's going to regret that fact. So I guess I feel very supportive of the decision that the rec board made.
I'd like to hear from other council members.
I'm gonna turn to Calvin and ask, Calvin, do you want us to, as a council, hear an official recommendation from you? We've entrusted Park and Rec to you, so do you want to make an official recommendation to us to vote on?
I mean, yeah, I also like the idea of the public forum. Like Avi said, like, you know, Miss Mayor said up there that we've got some people here that I'd imagine just about everybody's here for the mask policy that kind of don't agree with it. And, you know, I think it's important to hear everybody speak on it. But in regards to me, I know that I could have made a policy, that I could have just set a policy, and that's the way it was over at the rec center. But I respect the opinion of my board, and that's why I brought it to my board. And I wanted it to be a group effort for us to discuss. And with Dr. Cochran's knowledge too, I felt like this was very important to have the board involved with that. And I personally did not feel comfortable saying, I'm making all the COVID decisions and this is how it's gonna be. No, that's not what I was hired here to do. So that's where I stand on it.
I think it would be fair that if there is an appeal of the board decision, proper notice should be given so that those who support the board decision and those who oppose it both have the opportunity to speak. That would involve notice and a chance for people to have awareness of it, and perhaps that would be the next meeting. I think that's the straight way, the
So I would make
best
a
way to go
motion
forward.
to set a public hearing for our next council meeting regarding the Park and Rec mask board, or Park and Rec mask policy.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a couple of questions for Aaron, if you can answer them. Was the Park and Rec meeting held on Monday night posted?
I believe it was.
Well, it was or it wasn't? Was it posted?
I believe it was.
So was it closed or open?
I can't answer that. I was not there.
Because I've heard reports that members of the public were not allowed to come in.
I can speak on that real quick. That was my bad. So what had happened is I did have some individuals email me in regards to it being an open meeting. I had asked them to, because where we meet is about a quarter of the size of this right here. And I thought with COVID restrictions and stuff like that, even though some of them have been lifted, I had asked them to email me, and I put together a board packet of the concerns with the mask policy that I presented to the board members. So that's where I think the closed meeting stuff might come into question and stuff like that.
So, was anybody denied entrance to the meeting
No.
with the minutes?
You was denied entrance?
Yes. I asked to go to the meeting, and I was asked that I could go to the meeting, and I was told by somebody on the board that the meeting did not, that this committee did not make the decisions, that the council made the decisions, and if I had a complaint with it, I should go to the council. That was exactly what I was told. And so now they're saying, what are we gonna do here? I'm 80 years old, I'm a senior guy. I broke my hip. I need to walk, and I can't walk with a mask on. I don't care what he says. I can give you just as much information that counters everything he said, but I don't want to do that. I just want to walk because I'm supposed to, because for my energy and my broken hip, and I can't walk with a mask on. And this is terrible for me. And like I said, I wanted to say this to the rec committee, and I was told I couldn't go, that I needed to come here because you made the decisions. That's what I was told.
Thank you, sir.
One more question. So another person told me they asked for a copy of the minutes when they were denied access to the meeting, and they were told they were not allowed to have copies of the minutes to the public.
I never told him that.
I don't know, no, I'm
yeah.
not saying you did.
Yeah.
Someone,
Okay.
a female, told one of our constituents that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know where that came from, because I think I know who you're talking about. And I had emailed them directly, and I'm more than welcome, or more than happy to attach the minutes to anybody who asks for them, so.
Okay. My point being that if that meeting was really open to the public, people were welcome to come into it,
Yep,
then they would have expressed their points of view at that time, which
Right.
might have been more appropriate than, say, tonight.
email. Right, yep. So, and I apologize for that, that's my bad.
Terry, can you or one of you address, like this gentleman, it's very difficult to wear a mask for some people, they're breathing. Do we allow exceptions for that?
To allow an exception when you're talking about the health of everyone involved, ideally you would have some sort of note from a physician or provider that would explain your circumstance and why you would need a special accommodation. Now, in the physical therapy department, cardiac rehab at the hospital, everyone wears a mask and is able to do it, and these are people that are in there right after a heart attack. The most vulnerable, the weakest, and they're able to do it.
I'm in cardio rehab right now, and your mask policy there.
Hey, John, I'm going to allow this one comment, and that's it, but please go up to the microphone.
Oh, okay. But if you want to disallow it and waive it, that's okay, to a more appropriate time.
Well, I would prefer that we do have a vote here about having a public hearing next meeting.
Yeah.
So I would like to stick to that if I can. So, any other questions? Doug, I think you got your questions answered.
I did.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I've got a motion, just my comment would be that if there's a pro and a con group, that they pick one speaker if they could come together with their points, bullet points, those for the mask policy, those against, and choose a representative, that would be great. Then we're gonna have to set a limit on the number of people who can speak.
So
Well,
I think.
I have a
it'll
comment to
be
say about
fine.
that. We rarely have public meetings where there are people here. And as an example, when I was president of the school board, we closed Lockridge. I released all the rules because it's such an unusual event and so significant. I thought to give people full reign of their allowed time to speak would be appropriate. I don't think we should restrict it in this case. We don't have these kinds of meetings very often.
So.
It's our duty to listen to the people in the
You
city.
don't mean restricted number, you mean, but we would still restrict.
They get the 5-minute
the
restriction
time
like we normally would
limit.
have, and then unlimited number.
Unlimited.
But also the way it has always worked is if someone has said your comment, there's no need to say it again.
Right, no
So-
repeats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes.
you are the parliamentary decider. And if you want to limit the amount of time that each side is given, maybe they got 15 people who want to speak, but on each side, but you can say we're going to spend about 20 minutes on each side, that it can't take up the whole council meeting.
Thank you.
So that's in your discretion.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
John.
point of order.
Yes.
That if you make a ruling and someone on the council disagrees with it, they can make a motion to appeal that decision. And the council can vote on whether to uphold or sustain or override your decision. I just think you should be aware of that.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
Just, well,
Go ahead.
you can go ahead and have your vote. I was just gonna say, in our council rules of procedure, you have, according to the rules of procedure, you have that authority. It's given in the voted rules of procedure that you can restrict the length of discussion for the entire topic and with the amount of time of each individual.
Yeah.
Individuals.
So we'll give a thought between now and then. So go ahead and call the roll, Rebecca.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes,
Thank you. So, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Please, we'll have this on the agenda. We'll have a public hearing with it. And so bring your points. And again, if you know each other and want to have one person, with your group of friends who have an opinion and want to put them all together, you're certainly welcome to do that.
What is the date of the next meeting? We might wanna
The
tell them.
22nd will be the next meeting,
Okay.
I believe. Okay,
You have to be here. Tom.
so we are going to move on to Gloria Countryman of the Carnegie Museum.
And
I can call in.
Thank you for letting us know.
I would call it.
Thank you for coming and
You're probably,
being
your
interested.
vote's gonna be needed.
I will, not that it matters right now, but I will be more than happy to call in for the next meeting and be able to vote for, if you want to, I would hate for it to be split or anything.
Yes, please.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right? I'll try to put my teacher voice on, okay?
Okay. Hey, Chief, can you ask them to go outside and talk? Because it still is kind of floating in here. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Gloria, for your patience. Go ahead.
Hey, it's all right. I understand. I will leave my mask on if you don't mind, okay? I'm here tonight representing the Carnegie Museum Foundation of Jefferson County to bring you up to date on activities that the foundation is involved in with the Carnegie Museum building. First of all, as a reminder, the foundation was organized to operate for charitable and educational purposes as a 501c3 for the purposes of fostering awareness, appreciation, and protection of the history and heritage here in Jefferson County and around it. The foundation, as well as the City Museum Board, take this responsibility very seriously, and we work hard for the citizens of Jefferson County. Just a little side note. I've been a member of the foundation since 2009, and I've kind of lost track of how long they've had me as chairman of the board, but just in the last 2 years, there have been so many different things come up and different projects begun, some finished, some are in progress. It's hard sometimes to keep track of actually what's going on. But without the work and support of all the foundation board members and the members of the City Museum Board, we couldn't get the work done. First of all, how many of you are aware of the virtual tour that is available for the museum? Good. And if you have not gotten to it, I have a flyer and gives you the long drawn out address, or you can go to the Facebook page of the Carnegie Museum, and there's a tab there you can get onto it. I encourage you to do it. That's the baby of Stan Plum, the curator of the museum. He got it started and had a film company come in and do the filming, and it is awesome. It makes you really appreciate what we have there. We have been working, and I'm talking foundation mainly, we've been working with Indian Hills and Mark Schaefer, the director of the museum, and Whitney Monument Works to design a new lighted sign for the front of the building. If you've been anywhere close to it, you know the bricks at the ends of the sign that's there are deteriorating. So the new sign will also have new stones put up on each end that are donated from the Barhite Chapel. The sign will have the museum and Indian Hills listed on 2 individual stones. And this was decided with the help of the buildings committee. Isn't that right, Martha? I think. Property. Okay, I get the wrong word, sorry. And the stones are going to be about 2 1/4 inches apart. So it's 2 separate stones. And it will be put in this place where the sign is now, because that's where the electrical work is, and it's just a better place than trying to find someplace new. Indian Hills has agreed to remove the current sign in the old foundation, and they will replace with new foundation. Our foundation is responsible for installing the new ends. We're sharing the cost of everything with Indian Hills. The sign should be installed hopefully later this spring or early summer, but it all depends upon Kent Whitney's schedule. Now, the question has been asked by from several people to the board about where's the address going to be for the museum in Indian Hills, because that's what started this project in the beginning. We didn't have the 112 anywhere to be seen, and so there are several people that go looking for Carnegie museums around the country. They couldn't find us. They drive right by and not realize that they'd been by us. That's been discussed with Kent. It really doesn't fit in with the sign, the way it's set up, but we're looking at some place, hopefully on the building, where it's more prominent, and we'll have those numbers engraved on the building. There will be an address there, just not sure where yet. Also, discussion came up after our last board meeting, the possibility of putting a flagpole in the area, because we think there needs to be a flag in front of the building. So that's being looked into, nothing's finalized, nothing's approved, and that would possibly be funded by donations. So that's a continuing thing I'll keep you abreast on. The elevator is done. Finally. It's ready for inspection, we're waiting for that. We did get the fire door installed, and the funding for the elevator was provided by two different lost fund grants. Monies from the Greater Jefferson County Foundation, Indian Hills, our foundation, the Carnegie Museum City Board of Directors, and a donation from the Keith Schaefer Memorial Fund that was designated for use at the museum. Also, the flooring that's in the elevator was especially made and created and donated by Creative Edge, along with the marble baseboard that's there. And that's all because of Jim Bellalove going to work for that. All these partnerships that were developed during this project were vital to getting it completed. Just for your information, our foundation contributed approximately 40% of the final cost of the elevator. However, without the funds that were designated for the project from all of our partners, that elevator would have never come into existence. I want to thank the city particularly for recognizing the importance of what needs to be done in our valuable city landmark, and for the support not only for the elevator but other projects that we've worked on, particularly these last 2 years of lost fund grants. And we look forward to partnering with you some more, because there's more coming. And I know you're aware that Klingner and Associates gave a structural and maintenance analysis of the building, deemed it structurally sound. That was in 2018. And they suggested 3 main projects, so that's why we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 of the major work to be done was going to be the east exterior stairs, and I'm pleased to say that the work has begun to get that project done. The foundation has received lost funds and a grant from Greater Jefferson County Foundation to proceed with this project. The remainder of the money needed for this project is coming from the foundation. I want you to hear that, because that's a major expense for us, and we are willing to do that. We've contracted with Shaws Voorhees to replace the stairs, not repair, but replace, because in investigating it, the repair job would have not taken care of the problem. It would have probably fallen apart within a few years. And while we have the contractor there to do the concrete work, we're also replacing the sidewalk that's in front of the entrance of the museum that goes out to the sidewalk that runs north and south in front of the building. It's in need of repair too. There will be new railing go up that will be code, and as I said, the new sidewalk. Second, third phases are a little more expensive and extensive and will require more monies. Phase 2 of the work needs to be done on the building, and that will include masonry work on the brick and stone of the building, cleaning, patching, repairing, replacing, and stabilizing the rear parapets that some are just basically sitting there. The foundation is in the process of applying for grants to help with this phase. We've hired pathfinders to search for grants and then for the writing of those applications. One we're waiting to hear from is a rural revitalization grant, and we hope we hear soon, because we'd like to know where we are on that one. That helps us know where we can proceed next. That grant, as well as most of the grants that pathfinders will be applying for, require some percentage of matching funds. And that's from the foundation and other partners. And this is where, if we receive lost funds, those funds may be used as matching funds with our grants as we apply for them, as well as grants from the Greater Jefferson County Foundation. Now, all of this takes money, we know that. Although we haven't done any capital fundraising for the work on the Carnegie building as of today, we have plans in the works, and we'll keep you abreast of that when we have something organized. As of now, we're encouraging any citizens of Fairfield and Jefferson County, people who have ties to the county or to the area, to think about donating to the Carnegie Museum Foundation. with those monies being designated for repair and restoration of the building. They would help finish Phase 2 work that we're going to be starting after we get the stairs done, as well as the Phase 3 project, which is repairing the southwest corner. I don't think I mentioned, we hope that the stairs will be done by summer, but that all depends on weather and whether the contractors can get here. You know how that works. I don't need to explain that to you. But any of the donations that we receive from anyone are tax deductible because, as I said, we're a 501c3. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them tonight. I make no guarantees. But if I can't answer it, I'll get back to you. I'll make sure that I get it to Melanie or Aaron and they can pass it on to the council. So do you have any questions right now that I hopefully can answer?
Gloria,
Yes,
you said the stairs are going to be replaced,
yes,
so they'll be in the same style,
yes.
architectural style that
Have
we
you
have
seen
there
the drawings
presently?
for it? Have you seen the drawings for the?
No.
I can show that to you, so that will answer your question right now rather than me trying to track you down. If they're supposed to be in here, I brought that just in case. Be the same, set up the same way they are now.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Those should look exactly the
Yeah.
same.
And we haven't decided color, and we have artistic things that some people like to think about, so we'll see where that
You're not going to keep
goes.
the same colors?
I don't know.
Well,
We have things to pick from, let's put it that way. And we're going to narrow it and keep the time short on getting these decisions made, because once Steve Thornton gets it going, we're gonna be going.
I should think you would want to maintain the historical integrity of the building.
Oh,
in
yes,
every aspect
yeah.
that you could.
Oh, yeah. Now, you have to remember, too, those stairs are not original to the building. Although, they, as Mark tells me, they're 50 years old, they are historical. But we're not as tied to doing it, I don't think, as we would have been if we'd have used the original stairs that were straight up.
Do you
I
know
may
the
be wrong on
approximate
that.
cost of that stairway project?
What?
Do you know the approximate overall cost of the stairway project?
A little under $54,000. And that's not with the concrete out front, so the total project is about $58,000. And that's our funds, majority of it. But we believe in the integrity of that building, and we believe in making sure that it's going to be a safe place for people to be for generations. Any other questions?
Not a question. I just want to say I'm very impressed, and I think you guys are setting an example for other groups who utilize city buildings and partnering with the city and keeping these things updated and safe and strong and beautiful. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the fact that you are utilizing the lost funds strategically as matching funds for grants and also working with the Greater Jefferson County Foundation. So thank you very much for,
Well, thank
for
you.
that hard
We
work.
appreciate that, because we're working hard to make sure we maintain the integrity of the building. Any other questions for me?
This is your chance for a free plug if they want to make a donation. Who are the checks written to?
I'll take any checks, no problem,
Who did the
as long as they're
checks?
signed.
Carnegie Foundation?
Carnegie Museum Foundation,
There
yeah.
you go.
I have one, I'd like to leave you with this reminder, and I know you know this, but I have to put the pitch out because I know this is on the film too. We talk about all the exhibits that are inside. Yes, they're historical, but the most important historical item we have is that building. You've got to keep that in mind. It's the first Carnegie Library built west of the Mississippi River, and it's the prototype for Carnegie libraries that were built after ours. And I don't think that has always been emphasized. Then you add in the exhibits, and it's changed a lot. I'm anxious for us to open because you will notice some changes at the museum when you come in. Artifacts that have been found in storage that have become very interesting to learn about. And then new things that are being developed, like the virtual tour. And all of this has happened during the closing while we're dealing with COVID-19. You have an unexpected gem right here in Jefferson County, of which more and more people are becoming aware. You'd be surprised the number of people we hear from out of state and universities that are sending people here to research some things. So we're not just a little blip anymore. We're becoming an important place to be. And to emphasize what you just said, you are our partners. And we thank you for doing that because we're working on this together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for all the hard work that you've done and all the board. It's really amazing, and it shows such a dedication to our community, and we thank you. And thanks for reminding me how old I am, because I remember the old stairs as a little girl.
So do I, and I'm older than you are.
How many steps were there?
I don't remember, but yeah, they did go straight up, no doubt. And I remember when they were changed. Okay, let's move down to resolution action items and ordinances. The first resolution is a consideration of support for grant applications for the Carnegie building improvements.
Okay, so before Gloria leaves, I just want to say I love working with that foundation. We discussed in the Ways and Means Committee that each foundation operates a little bit differently in their partnership with the city. And this is a group of go-getters. They're like, we're going to do a project. Melanie, you want to look at these plans? We have them all drawn up and we've made all the decisions. And I said, great, okay, I can do that. I'll schedule a meeting with Martha and we'll get it approved by the council. So they've been great to work with. As she mentioned, they are doing lots of different grant applications. And so Pathfinders has asked the council, the first resolution is just a generic support of the phase 2 projects, which is the brick and stone work that they can use for multiple grant applications. Your second resolution is a resolution of support for the Washington County Riverboat Foundation, but they're both in support of the brick and stone work or the phase 2 project.
Thank you, Melanie. So, any other questions for Melanie or Gloria? If not, I'll take an entertain a motion to approve the first resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Anderson. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Andy.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Second resolution for the Washington County Riverboat Foundation.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill, second by Hallie. Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yes. I'm just curious about this foundation. They seek grant applications or applications for funds from outside of Washington County. Obviously, how far do they go? I'm just curious. Does anyone know?
We are a contiguous county.
Right.
That's
It
why
has to
we
be
can do
adjoining, I
this.
think.
It has to be adjoining, so it's just contiguous
Yes.
counties?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we are eligible to do so.
Have we ever, I'm curious, have we ever gotten one of these?
Not, I remember.
I think they've done a lot of work in Washington County, and a lot of those projects are completed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there are more grants coming in from
So
contiguous
they're
counties. now.
overflowing, they're just looking for
I mean,
projects.
yeah,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, Jefferson County's never gotten one of these, and I think it's high
Well,
time.
let's hope we are the first, because we're applying for 2 different grants from them this year. At least that's the plan anyway.
Great.
A small one and a larger one, so.
All righty.
Does that answer your question,
Yeah.
Paul?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rebecca, call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Thank you. That was approved unanimously. Next action item, emergency procedures for contagious disease policy. This is our own policy. And do you want to go ahead, Doug? You want to
Yeah.
ask your question?
Okay, so I was wondering if we could go through this with Aaron and just find out what aspects of this policy are still being used and which ones are not being used. And I'm wondering whether we still need it in place even. So could you go through that policy with us and tell us what we're doing, what we're not doing?
Which, do you want me to go through it line by line? How do you want me to do it?
Yeah, that's from the top.
All
Not
four
line.
all 4 pages?
Six.
See, I didn't know what we were going, again, going back to our rules of procedure, if you have a question for city employees, it should be, so that I have a chance or our clerk has a chance, we should know this by Friday. So I can tell you in general, we have relaxed some of our policies as far as this is concerned. We are not doing split shifts. We are staying in separate vehicles still. Most employees are still wearing their gaiters that have been applied. The important part of our policy that needs to stay in place right now is if someone were to get, if we rescind this policy, we no longer allow them COVID time off then. This policy needs to stay in place for that.
Right.
And so that's an important benefit that our employees get. So I wouldn't recommend
Well,
rescinding it at this
for,
point. but-
for example, this is a workspace, but we never clean it after we leave. Are people not doing that anymore?
I can't answer that. I'm not the one that does the cleaning, so I don't know.
Well,
But there's
the-
time in between, so the
This is usually
Germs aren't gonna
this
stay
is
there
usually a
for 2
pretty
weeks.
empty room
Right.
except for
Well, the employees
Right.
clean their own spaces. That's what we did at the college. The students would clean their own spaces after when they were finished. So I don't see anything in here about masks. So when, there's nothing in here about wearing a mask at a meeting or in City Hall or anything like that.
effective immediately no, that's not it.
Because I missed it, but I read it today.
But basically it's still following the governor's recommendations along with our county health nurse. And
Okay, so I also don't know how decisions are being made. So when they are in conflict with one another, how do you decide what the policy is?
who is in conflict with one another?
The state and the local county public health.
I haven't run across that at this point.
So why is everybody wearing a mask?
At this point, the
It's not a
council
requirement,
made-
right?
The council made that decision to
We
do
didn't
that.
vote on anything like that.
It was discussed a few meetings ago that we would continue to wear masks.
Yeah, but discussing and having a vote is not the same thing.
I'm going to defer to the council because that's not a discussion for me to be involved. That's putting me in the middle of and I don't appreciate that. So I'll let you all make that decision.
from my perspective, I think we were, doing it out of respect for our community. And I think at some point, and I think that's soon.
That's
we'll
what I
let 'em go.
recollect, is that it was just pressure from the community is why people started wearing a mask here.
I wear a mask here because I work in a healthcare environment and I'm not willing to carry COVID back into my residence.
I wear
Yeah,
a
that's
mask
personal choice.
because I
right.
don't want to spread something I might have and not know it.
Plus, you
Right.
guys sit closer together.
But it's not part of our policy, that's all I'm saying. It's personal choice.
It was a policy, I believe.
The governor's policy, even when she rescinded the mask requirement, it still says if you cannot socially distance, you should wear a mask.
Currently?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was,
The majority of the
This
time.
was from
in
the
this
other
office,
day.
do I wear a mask? No.
I strongly encourage.
Socially distanced the majority of the time.
Businesses, employers remaining open with in-person operations take reasonable measures under the circumstances of each establishment to ensure the health of employees, patrons, members of the public, including social distancing practices, increased hygiene, and other public health measures to reduce the risk. I mean, I guess I read that as, she doesn't talk about masks from one standpoint, but I guess you guys all three of you are closer together than 6 feet, and I mean, I understand that it could be personal choice too, from my view.
Right, I was just under the impression
Yeah.
that, because I asked Aaron at a meeting one night when I didn't have a mask on, I said, am I breaking a rule here? And I think you told me yes, but we don't have such a rule, really.
Well,
We have a practice, we
that
have a
was
habit,
part-
but we don't have a rule.
That was when
about
the
that.
governor's mandate was in place, that if you're inside, you should be wearing a mask. And now that it's been removed, for the most part, you are 6 feet away. The three of us, Katie, myself, and Michael aren't. So, yeah,
are closer,
but Michael and I aren't, so.
So I think also keeping this in place just in case there is, I mean, hopefully we're over the worst, but we don't know, and hopefully there's not a surge.
I would love not to wear.
And, but,
Well,
yeah,
if there-
I think we're all wanting to get rid of these things. And I think the most important part of that policy at this point is the procedures
The-
for, and
The benefit to
the benefit to our employees.
Well, that's
If they
important to
would
keep.
get sick, I think that's important. And it gives Aaron flexibility if we have to move back and forth a little
And
bit.
you made a public recommendation to wear masks within the city of Fairfield.
Yes, you're right.
So,
Yeah.
and that, at this point, that hasn't been.
It wasn't a binding policy.
No, it's a recommendation.
Not binding.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what we're doing here is non-binding. I
Right.
think we're kind of just doing that courtesy for each other, so.
So is there any action item we need to take on this tonight to,
No, I'm not recommending one. I just wanted to go over the policy and make sure I understand it and review how it's being used and that sort of thing.
okay.
I mean, it's becoming a hot topic. It is a hot topic in the state. It's a hot topic in Fairfield.
Sure.
So I thought it needed to be aired in the open.
Okay, great. Okay, so do I need a vote on anything, Rebecca? Aaron? Nothing, just let it go?
If there's no motion, there's nothing to
There's a
do.
motion.
Okay. Okay, next action item, consideration to accept Department of Transportation funding. So Melanie?
A couple meetings ago, I let the council know that we had received the city bridge funding for the Crow Creek Bridge, or the Burlington Avenue Bridge over Crow Creek that's near Chautauqua Park. This grant is for 100% of the construction cost, up to $1 million. The estimate that is attached to your council agenda says 1.55. That, we feel at this point, that is conservative. So our funding sources for this project include the $1 million grant, $150,000 of city funds, $150,000 of county funds, and then if during design we find that there's still need for additional funds, we'll be applying for state recreation trails funds because of the trail that goes under the bridge. And then kind of as a last resort, the STBG funds that we are using on 4th and 32nd, we do have some of those funds available that we could request from the region if we would need to. So this project is, the potential costs are covered. You will also see in this document that we needed to have an answer back to them by March 5th. I do have an email saying that I can get back to her tomorrow. She understands with people's council schedules, but I do need an action item to accept this funding from the Iowa Department of Transportation.
Just two quick questions.
Yeah.
So, did the city take official ownership of the bridge yet?
Yes.
Or is it still
Yes.
being debated with county?
We
It's
took
ours.
official ownership
Okay.
in October. Well, actually, prior to October, we had to become the official owner prior to making this
I
application.
just didn't remember us doing it.
Yep.
And then, once you do the redesign underneath the bridge for the trail, it won't flood anymore.
Well, I'm an engineer. I'm never going to guarantee something won't
I know
happen.
you can't, but it'll be a 100-year event maybe?
So they will be looking at both the flooding. They'll also be, there's standards related to the clearance between the trail and the bridge. I know also there is an erosion issue as it comes down around the bridge. Calhoun Burns is the bridge engineer in the state, and we'll be talking through all of those with them. All of the trail costs are eligible construction costs, so redoing that part of the trail, raising it up is eligible. But again, if we run out of the bridge funds, we would apply for additional funds to help cover those things. But yes, we want to, that trail was put in as an afterthought, I guess, to the bridge. The bridge was there long before the trail was, and so we want to bring that whole area up to standards with this project.
Because when you get a good rain, that mud will go all the way up to the end of the sidewalk almost.
Yeah.
On the south side.
Yeah, I think there'll be additional riprap as well as improved drainage all around the bridge to help a lot of that issue.
Where does $150,000 city funds come from?
It's coming from half of that is coming. I can't remember. I believe it's road use tax in the budget that we're currently in, and then another $75,000 in the budget that we're proposing. We thought that maybe we may start a little bit of design yet this fiscal year, which is why we had budgeted for it in anticipation of receiving the grant.
Okay. Is that, I'm just looking at our city administrator, I'm just wondering, is that, you're looking like you want to say something, that's accurate, okay.
I would
Okay.
say that's accurate.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I
Thank you,
can't
Madam.
remember.
I don't ever disagree with our city engineer.
I can't remember if it's road use tax or lost, but it's one of our regular street funds. It's not the discretionary lost or any other non-street, typical street funds.
All right,
Traffic remain open during
Thank you.
construction?
No, it won't.
Okay.
And so I've talked with the engineer on schedule, and I've let him know that we have major construction on Highway 1 happening in 2023. So we were gonna, he's aware of that. He feels like construction in calendar year 22 is very feasible. We will have some hurdles with the DNR floodplain district because of the drainage area of Crow Creek. But even if construction does not happen in the fall of 22, no, sorry, in the summer of 22, these types of bridges can be built almost year-round. So if we don't break ground until August of next year, they'll still be able to have that open prior to Highway 1 getting really torn up. And, we're not going to see a huge overlap between those two projects. That's the goal, and our engineer is aware of that potential traffic issue that we'd like to avoid.
Melanie, I see it on this one sheet. It's between road use and SURF,
Okay,
reserve fund.
thank you.
All right,
Motion to accept Department of Transportation funding for the bridge.
thank you. Moved by Anderson,
second,
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Thank you, approved unanimously. Next action item, consideration to award 2021 Highway 1 Water Main Replacement Project.
We let this project last week. We received 4 bids. Before I go through the bids, though, I would like to explain the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate for this project was $460,000. I made a mistake in calculating my traffic control. I used a cost per day rather than a cost per week. So if I would say a revised engineer's estimate would be closer to $405,000. The low bid was still under that amount, but I wanted to tell you that as you're looking at the numbers to see why there is such a difference. The low bid was from Four Seasons Excavation of West Burlington, Iowa. They're at a bid of $342,383.10. We also received bids from KM King of Burlington, Iowa at $402,337.50. Morris Enterprises of Copley, I don't know, from elsewhere in Iowa. What? Cloutier, okay. We asked them during the bid opening, but $432,960.00. And Lawson Construction of Kirksville, Missouri at $483,264.37. This is a different group of people that have normally bid our work. The reason is the majority of this project is going to be trenchless construction. And so that's why you don't see any more like local contractors bidding on it. And the reason for that is to minimize disruption of traffic and increase in costs. Whatever we saved in trenched construction, we would have spent it in traffic control. So that's why we chose to go with this design. After the change in the engineer's estimate, we still recommend Four Seasons Excavation as the contractor. Yes.
What is trenchless construction?
Like an auger, they push the pipe through the soil, they bore the pipe through the soil. And so they only will dig up maybe once every 200 to 300 feet, and then they push the pipe through the ground. They will do about 12-inch holes every now and then to check the depths of other utilities and also make sure that they're staying on track. They have electronic guidance systems as well that help them determine where they are underground, but so that there's a lot less disturbed area during construction.
It's horizontal rather than vertical.
Yes, yep.
So move we accept the low bid of from Four Seasons Excavation of $342,383.10.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Hallie, second by Rasmussen to approve the low bid.
Move by Flournoy.
Or, excuse me, yeah. Moved by Flournoy, second by Rasmussen.
People confuse us all the time.
I know. It's the gray hair. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Okay, next resolution. Consideration of agreement of voluntary property acquisition of step 2 easement interest. John, are you going to speak to this?
We previously obtained a permanent sewer easement from Mr. Flora and his wife, Ms. DeShepper, and they're just agreeing to supplement that easement with a triangular strip here, which is attached to your resolution for $300. Essentially, this is the same Title 6B eminent domain resolution we use on all these acquisitions. We're asking you to approve this one. It'll probably be the last acquisition we have to make for step 2, so that's the good news.
I move that we accept the agreement of the voluntary property acquisition for the step 2 easement interest as described in the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Flournoy, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Questions? If not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Consideration of authorizing list of auction items. Melanie, you going to talk about that?
I can. Somewhere in the rules of the state auditor, the council needs to approve divesting of this city-owned equipment. And so attaches a list of vehicles as well as some tools from the police department that we would like to send to Griner Real Estate and auction. They have an online consignment auction on April 7th. The police department, these are items that were stolen, recovered items that were never claimed. I believe you have to wait so many years before they get rid of it, and so now we're at that point. The rest of them are vehicles that no longer have a use to the city departments. We definitely, when one department doesn't need a vehicle, we see if any of the other departments need it first, and then at that point we sell them. The reason why we're going to a public auction rather than silent auction, or like we normally do, is because we have a larger list of items right now, and we thought a public auction would be a good chance to divest of this stuff. So we need your approval to take these items to auction.
I would like to move that they be taken to auction.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion or
Is this
questions?
strictly online or is it in person and online?
It is live online. So it's not like eBay where you have up until a certain point that they're taking only online bids at a certain time. I mean, one after another online.
If no questions or discussion, please call the roll, Rebecca.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Next action item. Consideration of set public hearing of the Capital Assets Improvement Plan for Monday, March 22nd at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. The next is to set a public hearing for the fiscal year 22 budget for the same evening, Monday, March 22nd at 7 p.m.
Motion to set public hearing for fiscal 22 budget.
Moved by
Second.
Gandy, second by Anderson. Any other questions, discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Next resolution, consideration of providing for the write-off of delinquent utility finals exceeding a 5-year lapse. Rebecca?
This is just a resolution we do to kind of clearing up the books every year.
Any questions, council?
What were these fees originally for?
Their utility,
Oh, okay. They
Yeah.
just never got paid.
right.
Okay.
And after, is it 5 or 7 years? I
We
think
weren't
that-
able to collect them.
Right, right.
And you can't put a lien on the property.
That was my question. Oh, okay.
After 5 years, they're just lost.
A lot of times they're gonna be rental properties or something like that, so there is no way to put them on a lien.
Oh, for the individual renters, you mean?
Yeah.
That's, I was just
Yes.
curious why it had gone so long if that was the
Most times
option,
we've sent it over
I
to,
get it, if it's
like,
a rental,
credit
yeah.
bureau and
Yeah.
it hasn't
Yeah.
been, yeah,
Yeah, we
any
send, we
movement.
typically send our delinquents to credit bureau or collections,
Yeah.
and if we don't get it that way, then we're just,
This is a short list compared to some in the past.
Move to accept.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any other questions or discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Next is the revision to Resolution 3588, use of sidewalk funds. We have a match of $12,000 for fiscal year 2021 and $68,000 for 2022. But you want to give us a little history here, Melanie?
Yeah. In 2013, the council passed a resolution supporting a grant application for a trail along Highway 1. At the matching funds at that time were pledged from the sidewalk fund, which is where the tax money from when we did the sidewalk project about 10 years ago, that tax money, as people have repaid it, have gone into a specific fund that we call the sidewalk fund. And so in 2013, the council pledged the $80,000 from that fund to be the match of this project. As the trail has changed and the project along Highway 1 has changed, we've had 3 resolutions changing the scope of work and the time frame. And I've finally given up, and on resolution number 4, I'm just asking that you allow the $80,000 to be used for this project, but in the fiscal year necessary to pay the bills. This is the DOT requires council resolution, and we're just not going to be as specific so that I don't have to come back a 5th time.
Is this Highway 1 South?
Yes.
Okay.
Seeing as this is the biggest single sidewalk project we've done in a long time, or will be, I can't think of a better use of the funds from that fund, from the sidewalk fund, so I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Hallie, second by Toohill. Any other discussion or questions? Not, please call the roll.
Hallie?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Next is regarding some bonding and refinancing, and we'll open the public hearing to see if anybody wants to comment on that. I don't think anybody's out there.
Not now.
Is that correct? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. The resolution now is to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 3 million general obligation capital notes. This is for $1.5 million for streets And then we had some refinancing on the library, streets, and airport, and West Taylor and court. So those are all the items in this
Yep, you got it.
bond. Anything to add, Aaron?
Nope, you got it.
So I would take a motion to approve that resolution. So moved.
Motion. Motion to approve said resolution.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Anderson. Any other questions or discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Thank you, approved unanimously. Then the next resolution really is to collect the taxes through the debt service. So that's what we're doing here. The issuance of general obligation capital notes, Series 2021, and levying a tax for the payment thereof. And this apparently is a new step that's required legally.
never done this one before.
Any comment, Aaron?
The only thing just to remember is that this will not raise our debt service levy. This is part of the planned borrowing so that we maintain that debt service levy at a constant level.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Moved by Hallie,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 1197. This is the third and final reading regarding the amended floodplain ordinance. And we would open a public hearing, but nobody's here, so I'll close the public hearing. And any other questions for Melanie about this or any discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Gandy. If there's no discussion, please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. 1198, I'll open the public hearing. This is related to amended pay compensation for the council and mayor. Close the public hearing. Any discussion here, council?
Just a clarification, I think it was printed in the union that the mayor's salary was, I believe, $5,400 a month is what he calculated, or a quarter, maybe? I can't remember.
Yes.
$5,400 a year.
No, actually, he wrote 30, I think he wrote 34,000 or something like
No,
that.
wasn't that high, but it was,
It was high.
Nobody's here.
anyway, and that's the same as it's been. It's not actually an
What a
increase.
heck of a raise.
Yeah, let's be clear, it's not that.
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
$5,400 a year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Hallie, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Thanks for pointing that out, because I'm sure people will be asking.
You're worth every penny, just for the record.
Oh, thank you. If no discussion or questions, Rebecca, please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 1199. This again is the third and final reading, the consideration of mixed-use ordinance. And I'll open a public hearing. And there's no one there, so I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve this.
Move to approve, then I have a comment after someone seconds it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Hallie, second by Gandy. Questions or comments?
Comment, I got a call from another property owner within the district who's very excited about first floor residential, which currently is not allowed, and the property is an old house, so it's, just makes a lot of sense. So we've got right now 4 properties on 4th Street that are currently zoned business. We can't have first floor residential, but I know people are interested in first floor residential. So I think, in a sense, some people maybe didn't know they wanted this until it was an option, and now we've got a lot of excitement for it. So hopefully we'll see some nicely renovated buildings, occupied buildings in that area.
And
We're
I
only
just,
aware of one objection from the gentleman that was here
About his
2 years
apartment.
ago. That's the
Yeah.
only objection we've heard, right?
Well, there were two two guys that had some objections,
Yeah.
but they were the same.
Did they get their permits?
I can't answer
Okay.
that.
They have to June or July. is what-
Neither one, they've owned the buildings that they had, those two gentlemen own, they've owned those buildings for
Quite a while.
quite a long time and haven't done a lot of updates, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
hold my breath to see something different change.
Just a warning, this is coming back again for 3 more readings to establish the zone itself.
To rezone.
To rezone it. So ordinance, now it's going to go to planning and zoning, and if they like it, they'll kick it back for 3 more readings. So
Okay,
get some more time talking about this.
thank you for that heads up. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes?
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great, that was approved unanimously. I want to thank the Economic Development Committee for working hard on this. I think it's a good move forward, and there we go. Mayor's
Mayor
report.
Boyer, one quick thing on
Yes.
that. You and I were talking about the comprehensive plan the other day about doing some things. That falls into some of the objectives of the comprehensive plan, so I just wanted to point that out too.
Yep, great. Thank you. So, the mayor's report, I don't have much, but I'm just going to mention it is Women's History Month. So, Google and do your women's history. But I want to share a little something, because I have this book about a guide to American women's landmarks. And do you know that we have one here in Fairfield? Auntie Woods Monument. Does anybody know who Auntie Woods is? Jason does.
That's not fair.
Right. If you'll indulge me, I just want to read this because I think it's cool. Fairfield Cemetery, an 11-foot high granite gravestone recounts the accomplishment of Mehitable Ellis Auntie Woods. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Who carried did I say it right? Mehitable. Okay. Sorry, Auntie Woods. Who carried supplies and gave tender care to Iowa soldiers in the Civil War. Driving her own commissary wagon and bearing the title of Major, Auntie Woods frequently dodged red tape and cannonballs to minister to her boys in blue. She always traveled alone and unannounced, answering all that her destination was to see my sons, all of whom are in the Army. In peacetime, Auntie Woods was the Fairfield's most charitable resident. She collected clothing and food for cyclone victims in Grinnell. I must meet a tornado. She gathered supplies for Kansas farmers whose crops were chewed to destruction by grasshoppers. When she died in 1891 at age 78, Auntie Woods was buried here in a funeral accompanied by brass bands and hundreds of soldiers. And the firemen who helped carry her presented a pillow emblazoned with the words, "Our Mother." So, little history, and go find her stone out there in the old Fairfield Cemetery. Okay, that's your history lesson for today. I won't give you one next time. City Attorney report. John, do you have anything?
Nothing else.
Thank you, John. Committee and board reports, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mayor. Ways and Means met on March 1st. Present at 6:30 p.m. approximately. Present at the meeting was myself as chair, Doug Flournoy, committee member, Katie Anderson, committee member, Connie Boyer, our mayor, Aaron Koiker, our city administrator, Melanie Carlson, our city engineer, and Rebecca Loper, our city clerk. The item of agenda, the sole item, actually there were 2 items on the agenda. One was to review the capital improvements plan, and this is my second year as a member of the Ways and Means Committee, and I've learned something each meeting. What I learned is in more detail this meeting is what the capital improvements plan actually is, and it's a well-done report prepared by our professional engineer, our city engineer, Melanie Carlson. In the report, she describes the CIP, as we call it, as a living document that will be modified as the fiscal year progresses, not intended to replace the budget, but to serve as additional information. And what I learned is, in addition to that, I learned that it's a summary of capital expenditures within each department or division. And so now I know there are 11 divisions or 11 departments. In the 11 divisions, I'm saying this to benefit those who might be listening, the 11 departments of division are administration, of course, airport, Carnegie. We heard a nice report this evening from the Carnegie Foundation, our representative. FACC, that's Convention Center, Fire and Rescue, library, parks and recreation, police, streets, water, and wastewater. So all 11 of those departments or divisions their capital improvement plans over the next 5 years are reviewed by this committee and are reviewed in that meeting. We discussed the CIP in some detail. There are including some unbudgeted capital needs that we'll need to look at more closely in the future, and we'll be able to meet those needs with continuing fiscal oversight, which is part of one of our responsibilities as the Ways and Means Committee. Katie Anderson motioned, and Doug Flournoy seconded that the committee, as the CIP was revised and amended, the committee recommends to the council that it be approved. And that was the substance of the meeting. We ended at 7:52. I'll welcome any questions or comments.
I only have one. I noticed we're putting the convention center as kind of like a city department or capital needs. When the property committee didn't accept the FACC's offer to go into some sort of 3-year partnership at a certain dollar amount, instead leaving the lease agreement as it is. So technically, the lease agreement says they are responsible for upkeep of the building. Doesn't mean we can't give funds, but I think there just needs to be a larger discussion about that particular property if we're going to start adding it into our capital improvement plan. Because I think those improvements would fall under those unbudgeted improvements to that building. And I think we can use the Carnegie Foundation as a role model for how that building really could be handled in a way that doesn't overburden taxpayers, which is that the group that enjoys using it rent-free looks for every avenue possible for funds to upkeep the building in exchange for using it. Anyway, I just was a little surprised to see it listed there when in fact we haven't changed our policy at this point saying that we are definitively absorbing funds ongoing year to year for that property.
Well, your point is well taken, Michael. I think the idea behind the note was the FACC is a separate point of discussion by the Ways and Means Committee. We're not creating a division or creating a department, but it is something we discuss separately from other items. And that's the point we're trying to make in the, or that's the point I'm trying to make, I should say. I take
By breaking
responsibility.
it out like that.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make in the
You're
notes.
correct also. They're all unfunded,
Unbudgeted.
things.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're not planning on spending money on them, but they're things that we need to keep an eye on.
So we consider it year to year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. But I wish we could, whatever formula the Carnegie Foundation is using, just like take it over to FACC and say,
There's another one too that we'd like to do that to it too. But
yeah.
Well, I think one of the benefits the Carnegie does is they've got a pretty decent endowment fund to help them with matching, and that helps.
Where did that
With
come
grants.
from? Was it?
They worked hard to build it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
They worked to get that. And
They've been getting bequests for 20 years.
okay, so they got some history.
Yeah.
No pun intended. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Paul.
Certainly. Any other questions or comments about the Ways and Means Committee minutes? Thank you,
Great.
Mayor.
Thanks, Paul. Water and sewer utilities?
We met earlier tonight. It was kind of an extension from the meeting 2 weeks ago. We had a gentleman that had a dispute with a water bill. He moved to a new residence house from an apartment. His water bill went up substantially. The meter eventually stopped working after about 3 months. We read the old meter by hand, didn't see any evidence where there was any problems with it. Replaced it with a new meter. The readings are a little lower but fairly consistent with what the old meter read, so we didn't see any point to pursue it any further.
Great, thank you. Administrator and department reports. We have an annual report from the police department. Is Chief going to go over that?
why don't I give my quick report quick?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have a lot. I have been to, I think 3 Rotary meetings along with a couple Kiwanis meetings here in the last month or so. In the last Ways and Means meeting, we discussed a little bit of direction for dispatch center. This next council meeting, I will have a letter that's been proofread by the city attorney and helped authored by a council member volunteer to, you volunteered to help to write a letter as far as.
Proofread for you.
Yeah, to address some of the issues that we're looking at with the dispatch center. So that'll be coming to the next council meeting. And at this point, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Okay, Chief, now we're ready for you.
We decided to keep crime stats to the last of the night. You guys can leave this meeting and go home and go right to bed, I'm sure. It's such an exciting topic. This year we tried to get out crime stats to you folks so you could review, so I wouldn't have to sit here and go through all the boring ones. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know we discussed at the first of the email that I can't take credit for the drop in crime. It's just been a strange year with COVID. We had a lot of reductions in crimes, but it was more attributed to people not having contact with each other, as we discussed in the email. So I'm not going to guarantee it next year. We will probably see the increase. We did closely look at our sexual assault investigations and domestic abuse investigations, just because having such a young crew, we wanted to make sure those are very specialized investigations. And we just want to make sure by looking at the recordings of the body cameras of the officers that nothing was missed. So as you can imagine, it's pretty time consuming for a supervisor to sit and watch an interview for domestic assault. But I think it's very effective because you're right there, you can discuss the positive and negative with the younger officers. We also discussed in there that the 5 officers that you folks saw sworn in here, all the training that went in last year, and that kind of, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's 5 and then a 6th officer was out on light duty for several months, it's about a third of the department that we were training last year. So, but I'm not going to take a lot of your time with the boring stats. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer them though.
What's IWOA?
That's interference with official acts.
Oh, okay.
It's any physical resistance. It covers several groups, believe it or not. Everywhere from correctional officers to EMTs to nurses in the emergency room, any emergency medical providers. It's called a special profession, but it's an enhanced, there's 2 parts. The interference is you can't interfere with the official acts of a police officer, but it has to be some type of physical. So an interference charge would be either physically fighting with the officer or running from the officer when the officer attempted to investigate or place the person under arrest.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
So a lot of these statistics are covered by, multiple statistics covered by one person. So charged with multiple crimes.
It can be.
I was just wondering how many people are involved in this list.
Like I've discussed before, it seems like we deal with 5% of the population almost all the time, but our officers understand that too. What we call burying somebody with charges or writing a bunch of charges, it just isn't helpful anymore. When I first started, we did have, but you spend a lot of time charging people and doing complaint affidavits, and a bunch of charges that are then dismissed for the plea bargain later. We've kind of streamlined that, so there's a lot less. Usually if there's multiple charges, there's multiple crimes. In other words, if there is 2 drug charges, it's only because it's 2 different drugs. It might be cocaine, whatever other two drugs are. There are different possession charges for each of those. I can say that's been reduced quite a bit, just from working with the court system and understanding the judge is not going to let the officers nowadays bury people when charges are all going to be dismissed at court anyway. So it's just a lot of talking with our prosecutors and saying, this is what I could have charged, so this is the deal that I would be willing to work.
What are the assault and harassment where there's a number and a parenthesis number? Is that calls and charges, or what's the difference between those two numbers?
That's a very good question. The number in parentheses is the number of people that called us and wanted to report a harassment.
Okay.
The actual number was 192 last year. They told our dispatchers that they wanted to report harassment after talking to an officer. It fit the elements of the crime of harassment, and the victim actually then wanted to pursue charges after talking, and that only happened 7 times last year. It is a very specific element crime. One of the elements of harassment is there has to be a contact without legitimate purpose, and a lot of times people call that and report what they consider harassing, but that is a very important element in Iowa because, like I explained to a lot of people, when they're upset, when it's not a harassment charge, we live in a country that has freedom of speech, so that is the government limiting freedom of speech by arresting somebody for harassment, and that's the huge hurdle we usually have to get over. And once you explain that to them, that unless it's an actual threat, harassment is very hard to show in court, as you can see by those stats.
Chief, you had pointed out that traffic stops were down, for example, because so many of the new officers were in training and just didn't have the hours to be out and about.
Yes, sir.
It's also not such a bad year for that because like this time last year, when the pandemic first was announced, it was ghost town for a little while. So I suppose you also see that accidents are down. So not so bad after all that we weren't out there issuing those citations. But would you say now that, like I just noticed subjectively, I see more patrol cars. Would you say you guys are getting your patrol back up to where it was before you had all the newbies?
Yep, yeah, they're working at full staff, minus vacations and sick leave and stuff right now. I shouldn't say full staff. We still haven't filled our 14th position, but yeah, you're right. It's more officers available. Last year, Lieutenant Kinsella and I were usually 3rd and 4th officers working days. Now it's 3 officers usually to a shift, which takes some more time for us, but that also means 3 officers if there's nobody off on that shift or out patrolling instead of the 1 or 2 it was before. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot more presence when have your staff trained and back from the academy for sure. That's an excellent question.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
you.
Appreciate your hard work and the departments. Project update?
Can I, a quick note, Councilmember Anderson apologizes, but she had to excuse herself.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Nothing real particular I want to point out. We are starting into construction season. We just ask that everyone remain patient and drive carefully around the construction zones. We have them happening all over town. With more people working from home, I understand that there might be more people affected by different construction projects that are near their home. And just will continue to do the best to keep our employees and the contractors and the citizens safe during construction. The only things I do want to point out are under the future projects. These were discussed a little bit in the Ways and Means meeting, but the Park and Rec Foundation has received donations, funds for replacements of the bathrooms at Chautauqua Park and the bathrooms at Waterworks. Letting this group know kind of what our plan for this process is Calvin and I are working on some preliminary layouts, and then we'll be working with Morton Building or similar type companies to establish project cost. Then we'll take that to the foundation and the executor of that estate that provided those funds to get their sign off on the project. And then we'll bring it to council. So before we get into the bidding process, we will bring it to council. But we will be running it through the executor before we bring it to you. We don't want to bring you something that does not meet the requests of that giving. So we will be working on that over the next couple months, maybe turn some dirt yet this year. If not, it'll be this time next year that we'll be starting on some of those projects. But we'll keep the council up to date as we finalize the layouts and then also determine what's going to be happening with the existing buildings. That is all.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, council? Not, okay, can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Gandy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.